Go.
Okay, so last week we hinted that the military is looking to AI applications because, of course, the defense industry has to stay on top of these things, and so let's talk about them a little bit. This is a slide made by Lev, and there are multiple uses here. There are drones that can use them for surveillance. There's fitness tracking, and that the troops wear various smart tech, and AI might be able to help them. Maintenance. Hey, your airplane flies a certain amount of hours, and AI will tell you where and how it might need maintenance. Apparently, there's space tracking applications. I've not heard of that yet. There's weapons delivery, which is called the Valkyrie XQ-58A. So the Air Force is starting to look into unmanned combat aerial vehicles to accompany its manned fighter aircraft. And then there might be lethal autonomous weapon systems, and research is being done into into AI controlled, ground-based weapons like you see in the lower left-hand corner. Yeah, we're talking about ground-based robots armed with rifles that can be the front line of future wars, and let's hope it doesn't fall into enemy hands. To go into this a bit more, this is the X-62A. It is a modified F-16 Fighting Falcon, also known as the F-16 Viper. It is a 50-year-old fighter jet design. However, the twist is that Lockheed Martin is now flying this with an AI pilot. That is, it's loading up an AI program into it and just flying these fighter jets. They're fairly cheap, mass-produced fighter jets, but highly maneuverable fighter jets using an AI pilot. And these are very aggressive programs, as said by the human fighter pilots that had to fly against them in mock dogfights. What we're talking about here, ultimately going forward, is that aircraft these days are reaching the limit of performance, where to the point that the bottleneck is the human being inside the cockpit. That you have aircraft like the F-16, like the F-22, that can pull more than 9 Gs, which means 9 times the force of gravity, and that can that can really take out all but the most fit of airplane pilots, like completely render them unconscious. So an AI doesn't go unconscious, an AI doesn't have human limitations. And so we're talking about, for the future, if airplanes need to be more maneuverable, which is arguable, that AI can do maneuvers that human fighter pilots can't. However, ultimately, AI is also able to process more information, possibly, without mistakes, than a human fighter pilot can. So when the job is fly this airplane into this position and be able to understand all this different information and fire the missiles in this direction, it's possible that we can have AI do this in the future. And of course, that's that's good if you're the country with this technology. That's bad if you're the country against this technology. Next, autonomous weapon systems, also known as the Meanor AWS. We're talking about lots of computerized warfighting agents like that dog armed with a rifle. The UN is very concerned about this. I think the UN is an outdated form for dictators and terrorists. But, as we see in Ukraine and in Israel, that sometimes you just don't have enough manpower to actually wield all the weapons that you need to. And you don't want to put young flesh and blood soldiers into harm's way. We're talking about young to mid 20-something-year-old soldiers going into harm's way. And if they die or if they get maimed in the line of duty, that's going to have an absolutely horrendous political cost back home. That you're talking about. You have a news headline that 15 soldiers were killed in a suicide bombing or something. That's miserable. But on the other hand, if you lose some robots out in the field, well, okay, you lost some scrap metal. Who cares? They're attritable. They can be lost, and you can field, thousands of them, and they don't need human logistics. They don't need to eat. They don't need to sleep. So we're talking about just mass producing these expendable, metal robots that just go out, hold a rifle, and shoot the bad guys without putting human lives at risk, which from one point of view could be seen as some excellent deterrent that one nation has 40,000 guys with guns, and the other says, okay, we have 200,000 robots with guns. Do you want this fight or not? So this would be a complete game changer if this actually got into production and is able to actually be efficiently deployed, because you simply war-fighting nations would simply outproduce other nations that don't have this technology, and the more developed nations with the better economies, they have a better track record on human rights, on economy, on economics, on the reasons people want to live there, and in campaigns against asymmetric warfare, against terrorists, and so on. You could see that these can be sent into tunnels. They can be sent into urban warfare environments. They can be sent into environments that are just generally too dangerous to send human beings into. And so, yeah, this is a potentially huge innovation in the form of being able to wage war safely from a certain point of view. Take that how you will. Last slide, the loyal Wingman program, Unmanned Combat Aerial Vehicles, UCAV for short. The idea being that even though a country like the United States Air Force might have some super high quality sixth generation aircraft, we're talking about the sixth generation air dominance fighter currently in production to replace the F-22. We're talking about the B-21 Raider stealth bomber. Those things are very expensive on a per unit cost. It takes a long time to train the pilots, and generally, even though you might have great mission planning, at the end of the day, again, we're talking about sending human beings into harm's way on the first day of a kinetic war. So say China tried to invade Taiwan, even if you have something like an F-22 Raptor or a stealth bomber, you still don't want to risk those getting shot down in the first initial exchange of fire in a war. So that's where these sorts of drones come in. They're AI-powered drones, and they form up on the wings of other aircraft, and pilots can essentially command them to say, okay, go out, go forward, and we'll feed you the targeting data and shoot missiles at the enemy aircraft with a much lower radar cross-section than everything but the most stealthiest of stealth planes, because they don't need cockpits, they're much smaller, yada yada. In a certain video game series called Ace Combat, there were scenarios that that the enemy ace pilot had a fleet of drones accompanying them, and previously this was the realm of near-term science fiction, that you could have cargo aircraft deploy a whole swarm of drones, and they just fill the sky and shoot a bunch of missiles, and we thought that was science fiction. As it turns out, they're getting closer and closer to reality. So luckily, the United States Air Force is the first to the punch with them. Let's hope that they have their military secrets locked away under lock and key, because again, it'd be really dangerous if other nations got this technology. So this is in development. As you can see, there's a picture of the XQ-58A. We're talking unmanned aerial vehicles that carry missiles. So they allow pilots to multiply their weapons load several times over, or maybe they could just be controlled by drone pilots from far, far away. At the end of the day, the central theme is you send in armed automatons that do not have a human pulling the trigger, these things are much more easily attritable. They can be lost with far fewer consequences as opposed to a pilot or a soldier being captured or killed. And this completely would change the face of warfare, hopefully in a good way, in that other people just would not want to go to war because a country like America, like Israel, like some European nations would just send in drones, and there'd be, no victories to really claim. So that is the military applications of AI. Hopefully it results in a more peaceful world. And that's all I have for now. So, Lev, you can stop the recording.